What's up, everyone? Excited to get this video today about Fisker, which just announced a major convertible note offering, which will potentially increase to 680 million in total for an offering number. So, pretty interesting here. It's a good sign to see that the company's locking up long-term financing. Although this convertible note technically has it has the likelihood of becoming somewhat dilutive to shareholders. So they this note basically allows the buyers, the investors here, to convert into shares at a price of $7.80. So this is basically like a call option within a debt note. So it's typical financing in like pre-profitable companies. This is how Tesla got a lot of financing. So it is very typical to see. But it is important to note that this could be somewhat dilutive to shareholders if the price rises above $7.80. But we're seeing shares jump 13% in reaction to this news, which isn't shocking. I think it was somewhat expected that the company was going to have to figure out, some way to finance their future growth endeavors, whether that be through this debt offering or it be through, a share offering. This really did kind of have to happen. So it seems as if the market is reacting positively to this deal, which is a good sign for shareholders. And it does this. Whoever this investor is definitely is showing confidence in the shares, because this is essentially a buying a debt note with a call option built in, right? That with the strike price of $7.80. So very interesting news for shares. And we will likely see how this plays out, obviously, and hopefully we can figure out who is actually behind this buy. I would be kind of interested to see if it's an existing shareholder or not. But with that being said, let's take a look at the price chart, at the price action for today. Take a look at the chart and see if we can't give a price prediction for shares. So as you can see here, Fisker's obviously up 13% on this news. But before I give my price prediction, I just want to say this is not financial advice, so please do your own research in D&D. So in terms of what I'm seeing on the chart here, we're coming up to test this 200-day moving average, which currently lies at about $6.76. This is where shares had pulled back in February, right at this 200 DMA. In fact, on January 27th, we saw a pullback from this 200 DMA. And then a couple days later, we saw another pullback from this 200 DMA. So the 200-day moving average seems like a pretty significant level of resistance for shares. And then also, we're basically coming up to the same level in which we topped out in May. So in May, we topped out at about $7. And this resistance level, you can call it that, this level where we've seen shares, pick up some selling pressure in the past on May 26th. Well, we're coming up to this level once again today, which pretty much coincides with the stock's 200-day moving average. So this could, kind of help push shares lower, unfortunately. But with that being said, if we're able to close, the daily candle above this 200-day moving average, well, I think that could provide some further upside to shares. So in terms of how I'm trading the stock, I think, we're likely going to get one of two things. The first would be what I just kind of ran through, right? Shares pull back from this 200-day moving average like it did in January. That is a possibility. Now, let's say we close today above this daily moving average and we're able to kind of hold, for at least the open for tomorrow. If we're able to close above this 200-day moving average and we're able to open above it tomorrow, I think this 200-day moving average likely holds, and we get a move higher over the coming weeks. So my price prediction would be, depending on what happens around this 200 DMA, if we move above it, hold, I think we likely move up to $8 pretty quickly. If not, if we reject, we likely, continue lower. So that's kind of what I'm seeing technically with 4 shares here. Obviously, this is just a chart pattern, or not a chart pattern, but I'm basically just making a prediction based on how the chart looks. Obviously, you could get random news. Let's say Goldman Sachs comes out tomorrow and puts a buy rating on the stock. The stock's going to rocket regardless of what any technical analyst says. So keep that in mind. But that is kind of how I will be trading shares, just looking for a break of that 200-day moving average. And then let's take a look at some seasonality trends. So this screen right here shows you what months the stock typically does well in, what months the stock typically does poorly in. You can see here in July, shares typically drop 6.8%. And then in August, shares typically rise 2.8%. In September, they're usually down 9.5%. So not the end all be all here, but the seasonality trend for July is in the bears' favor. So everyone's been talking about Fisker's high likelihood of a short squeeze, and when I look at the numbers here for them, I would definitely agree with that theory. So it's not listed here, but short interest is about 39% of the float, which is very high. But more interestingly is days to cover is 8.5. And for those that don't know, days to cover basically tells me the average days, or the days of average volume it would take to cover the existing shares that are sold short. So 8.5 tells me that there's 8.5 days of average volume sold short on the stock today. 8.5 is a pretty high number. Typically for a short squeeze, we look to see a days to cover ratio of 10 or above. So 8.5 are right on that cusp, right? So given that and the high short interest and the fact that we had short interest actually increase 11% during the last period, and short interest gets released twice a month. So I would give this, in terms of a short squeeze rating, I'd give it about a B plus, A minus. I do think it's somewhat likely that we get a short squeeze, although all the signals are not screaming short squeeze yet. So definitely do think it's likely. And I think a bit of the move today higher was likely due to the amount of shares that are sold short and probably getting some of those shorts to cover today. So that being said, let's take a look at some of the financials for the company. So for those that don't know, this is Seeking Alpha. I use it for all my screens here. Basically shows me, it puts all these factors relative to the peers. So for valuation, this stock grades out as an F relative to its peers. So let's take a look at these numbers and see what we can get from it. So let's start off with valuation, actually. So the company doesn't make any money, obviously, but come on. So the price to book ratio is 7.9, which seems like a lot, but when you compare it to purely EV stocks, which I'll do in a little bit here, it's not horrible. The sector median is 2.5 for the automotive sector, compared to 7.9 for Fisker. For those that don't know, price to book ratio just puts the market cap relative to the book value of the company. So Fisker currently trades at 7.9 times the book value of its company, which for many high growth stocks, 7.9 is a pretty solid number. And then even the sales also is only 1.2, which is just above the sector median at 1.6. So not too bad there. Excuse me, 1.16 for the sector median. So not horrible there. Although obviously in terms of valuation, the company still has a long ways to go. Let's take a look at some growth numbers here, though. So year-over-year revenue growth looks amazing at 450%. So revenue grew 450% over the past 12 months, which is a great sign for this company. And then over the next 12 months, revenue growth is projected to rise 3,100%, which is kind of crazy when you consider that the sector median growth is 6.6%. So, as the sector median has been declining in terms of growth, right? Fisker is increasing its growth. So seeing a divergence from the general sector in terms of growth direction. So awesome to see there. It's really important whenever you have a company that doesn't make money that you're seeing growth numbers look very healthy, because if a company doesn't make money and it doesn't have prospects for growth, well, then you just have a dying company. So good to see that here for Fisker. And then let's take a look at gross profit margin. So gross profits are at 21%. For those that don't know, that's basically just revenue minus cost of goods sold. Gross profit tells you what you make on everything that you sell. So every car that they're selling right now, they're making about 21% on that sale, which is definitely solid when you compare it to the EV sector, which I'll do in a second, although it is below the sector median. And then cash per share is at $1.98, which is pretty good when you consider that's a significant amount of the firm's market cap, right? So as of right now, that's 29% of the firm's market cap is in cash. So definitely good to see there. I always want to see a company with high growth and low profitability, or really just low earnings. You always want to see that the company has a robust balance sheet and has money to fund its future growth endeavors, which this company 100% does. So awesome to see that there. And then let's take a look at some of the closer peer comparisons. So you can see here, this is the price return for shares. So this kind of shows you, what shares have been doing over the past year. You can see here that Fisker has been outperforming the peers generally, but still has a ways to go in terms of, obviously having a good trading performance. And, not all these numbers look great, but, Tesla is really the only one that actually has a positive number year over year in terms of share price. So, but when you compare Fisker to, Nikola, Neo, Rivian, Workhorse, Lucid, it is outperforming those closer EV peers, or it's basically right in line with Rivian. But interesting to see there. And then when we take a look at valuation, so we can see here that most all of these companies don't make any money right now besides Tesla. Um, and then it's for Fisker, we're projecting for for not for this year, not for next year, but 2 years down the line, the company should be profitable. And the company is projecting a PE of $10, meaning that for every dollar of earnings, investors are willing to pay $10. Just for quick and easy math there. And this is better than all the other peers, actually, if you look at it. So it's better than Workhorse, it's better than Tesla, better than Nikola, better than Neo, better than Rivian, and better than Lucid. So valuation wise, all these companies are pretty poor. But when you look a bit far out, it does seem as if Fisker has a better shot and a clearer roadmap towards profitability and earnings than other pure EV plays. Then when we look at price to book, like I said, that's a pretty good number for the sector, basically in line. And then when we take a look at revenue growth, like I said, Fisker has very good revenue numbers, and really in the sector, Rivian, Lucid, they all have pretty good numbers, right? Neo needs some help there, but all these stocks are projecting pretty serious growth, and year over year have had some solid growth. Here is where Fisker really starts to show itself from the pack and really show why this company is different than the other companies, the other pure EV plays specifically. So Workhorse isn't even listing a gross profit margin. Nikola has a minus 230% gross profit. Neo has a 7.8 gross profit. Rivian has a minus 140% gross profit, and Lucid has a minus 171% gross profit. So when these firms are selling cars, they're losing money on every car that they sell. Fisker, on the hand, they're making money on every car that they sell. Tesla, on the other hand, making money on every car that they sell. Neo is making money, but not like Fisker is every car they sell. So this basically tells me that, once growth, if all these companies were to grow a ton, this gross profit margin is very important, right? So if you're making 10 cars and then all of a sudden you're making 1,000 cars, well, this gross profit margin just became way, way more important, right? Because you're now able to make 21% per car sold compared to Rivian, who is losing money on every car that is sold. So definitely a difference maker in terms of gross profit margin for the stock. Really, 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 really do like to see that. And then in terms of insiders owning shares, Fisker has the largest concentration of insider holdings. So 41% of the company at Fisker is owned by insiders. What does this tell me? This tells me that people at that company feel very confident and you know firm in their belief that this company will raise in share price at the very least, and obviously hopefully move towards profitability and become a stock that many people own. So I some people would look at this as a negative, but honestly I look at it as a positive because it says that these insiders who have owned shares for years and likely are sitting on a massive gain want to continue to ride that wave, which I think is a good sign. And then short interest wise, the most shorted stock out of all of these EV pure plays, besides Tesla obviously not really being a pure play, although it's close to it, is Fisker at 39%, and it's not super close. Nikola is at 21, Lucid's at 20, but Fisker is nearly double those numbers. So Fisker is definitely seeing a significant amount of short interest relative to the peers, which gives the stock that high likelihood of a short squeeze, right? Which could be seen as a positive. And then total cash, so the company has about $650 million in cash, which does rank out solid compared to most of the peers. Not really ranking out great for Rivian. I've done a video about Rivian, talking about their cash holdings, which is very robust. They have $12 in cash per share, which is very solid. But for Fisker here, you have $650 million in cash, and then you have $700 million in debt. So you're seeing more debt than cash right now, which always puts you in a situation where you need to do two things: issue equity or issue more debt. That's why the clarity on that new issuance of debt today was a positive for the shares, because now it tells you, oh well, you don't have to worry about a massive offering. We already did our offering. That's gonna help fund the company for the future. So, and that offering was for potentially $600 million. So that's definitely a significant chunk of change when you take a look at their cash position, which is only $600 million in itself. So definitely a good sign to see that deal got done. And when you take a look at these numbers, you understand why, right? So, overall, after this recent, restructuring or, uh, convertible note issuance, I do think the company has even better footing in terms of being able to fund its future operations. So all in all, I think Fisker's a pretty solid company. I love the gross profit margins. I like the cash position. I think this recent news event was solid. And as of right now, actually, in the past couple minutes here, we've seen the stock trade up over that 200-day moving average, which would imply we could get a move up to about $8.05, which would be pretty firm resistance for shares. So, I do think the stars are kind of aligning for this company, but obviously time will tell. So, with that being said, let me know what you think about this stock in the comments. Also, if you would like me to cover a different stock, I always take recommendations from my subscribers. So, as long as you're subbed, let me know what stocks you want me to cover, and I'll make a full video about the stock that you asked for. So, with that being said, I'll end the video there. If you got some value from this video, please leave a like. We post company breakdowns and important market moving news on this channel on a daily basis, so make sure you are subscribed. If you would like to receive my daily portfolio moves, my exits, my entries, and see how me and my team of analysts are trading the markets, join the Discord through the link in the description below to get our free 7-day trial. Also, if you would like to join our free daily newsletter, sign up to our Substack, which is linked below as well. With that being said, good luck everyone. Happy trading, happy investing.